Alright, today's lesson is 10-1 and actually 10-2. Our objective are to be able to interpret data in line graphs, bar graphs, circle graphs, and stem and leaf plots. Bar graphs, line graphs, circle graphs, and stem and leaf plots can be used to represent data in a visual way. A bar graph displays data with vertical or horizontal bars. The bar graphs are a good way to display data that can be organized into categories. Using a bar graph, you can quickly compare the different categories. A double bar graph can be used to compare two data sets. A double bar graph has a key to distinguish between the two sets of data. This is going to be the first one that we look at. It's going to be the bar graph and the double bar graph. Alright, example number 1 is talking about this bar graph over here, and we're talking about casserole orders, and over here are the different types of casseroles that we can order. And over here are the number of orders that were placed for that particular casserole. Example 1A says about how many total orders were placed. And if you'll notice, total is underlined here. You need to fill that into your note sheet and make sure it says about how many total orders were placed. So you're filling in with the word total. Well, I'm going to actually have to approximate here. I'm going to have to approximate how many of each and then add them up to get my total. So for tuna noodle, there's 42. King ranch, 31. Baked ziti, 18. Chicken with broiled rice, 27. And lasagna is going to be 60. And again, I just approximated these by looking down and saying, okay, about where that's falling. Well, it's between the 40 and the 50, but much closer to the 40. Same thing here with the 31. Okay. So again, if you were to do this, your numbers might be off by a little bit, but that's okay. All right, so what we're going to do to get the total number of orders placed is we're going to add up the individual totals, and we get a total of 178, which is approximately 180. So what's in red right here should be listed on the blank part of your worksheet.
Go ahead and put these numbers in on your graph if you haven't already done so as well at the end of the line so you can see where these numbers in the blank actually came from when you go back and look at this later. Make sure you have that down before you move on.
B, about how many more tuna noodle casseroles were ordered than King Ranch casseroles? And again, on your worksheet, you're filling in the words King Ranch. And to get this, we're going to look at the King Ranch, and we're going to look at the tuna noodle. Tuna noodle had 42, and King Ranch had 31. So we're going to say 42 minus 31, and we get 11. Please make sure you have that filled in, what's in red, in your blank. And we're also going to say that that's about 10, because again, we're approximating here. See, about what percent of the total orders were for baked ziti? We had 60 baked ziti, and we had 178 total. Or actually, we're going to say the 180 where we approximated. So, or sorry, baked ziti only had 18. I was looking at lasagna. Baked ziti had 18 orders placed, so 18 out of 180, and you can see we find a percentage by saying part divided by the whole times 100%. So we're going to say 18 out of 180 and get 0.1, and then I have to take that 0.1 and turn it into a percentage, so I'm going to multiply that by 100 and I get 10%. Again, please make sure everything in red is written down on your worksheet.
And you're not going to have a blank there for that, so you just need to put that in the space between C and 2A.
Make sure you have this written before you move on.
All right, example number 2, part A says about how many times as great is the fat content in turkey as bread. So in your blank there, you're going to write the word turkey. We're going to look over here at our graph and see that we estimate the fat content, because that's what this graph is measuring of a sub sandwich. It says the bread is right halfway in between the 0 and the 2, which means we're going to estimate the bread is about 1. The turkey falls right halfway in between the 2 and the 4, so we're going to estimate that as 3. So here we have written that the bread fat content is going to be 1, and then the turkey is going to be 3. So write that on the first line underneath the question there. Bread 1, turkey 3. We're going to set this up as an equation. Bread times x equals turkey, because we're trying to figure out how many times greater is the fat content in, I'm rewording this, how many times greater is the fat content in turkey than the fat content in bread? So bread we've decided is 1, turkey is 3, so we're just going to substitute in for the word bread, we're going to put 1, and for the word turkey we're putting 3, because those are the numerical values for those ingredients. And then we're just solving for x here, so 1x is the same thing as x, so x equals 3. And our answer here, which you're not going to have enough room to write there unless you can write really teeny tiny, but I want you to make sure you understand it, is there is 3 times as much fat in turkey as bread. Make sure that you have that down, what you can fit. All right, B, you will have enough room to write the explanation down on this one. It says, about how many times as great is the fat content in cheese as ham? So that cheese falls right between the 8 and the 10, so we're going to estimate that at 9. The ham falls right at the 6, so that's pretty clear. That's a 6. So we put in 6 for ham and 9 for cheese. And you've written cheese in your blank there. So we're going to set this one up just like we did the last one. We're going to say ham x equals cheese. Cheese is in the blank. Cheese is on this side of the equal sign by itself. I've lost my mouse. Ham was 6, so we're substituting in a 6 for ham. Cheese was 9, so we're substituting in a 9 for cheese. This one's not quite as cut and dried as the last one, where our x was pretty much already solved for. So we're going to have to solve for x here by dividing both sides by 6, which is going to give us that x equals 1.5. So in words, and I want you to write the words here because you've got room, there is 1.5 times as much fat in cheese as ham. Make sure that you have that down. There is 1.5 times as much fat in cheese as ham.
Right, example number 3 says, use the graph to determine which years had the same average basketball attendance. So this is our double bar graph. The ones in red are talking about the football attendance. The ones in orange are talking about basketball attendance. And it's the average attendance per game in thousands, and this is the different years. So we want to know, when's it going to be the same? Make sure you fill in the word basketball, the underlined word, into your worksheet. So if we look right here, if I draw a line through here, then it looks like 2001, 2002, and 2005 all had the same basketball attendance. So we're going to put 2001, 2002, and 2005. Part B says, what was the average attendance for those years? There's nothing to fill in here as far as the question on your worksheet. So we're going to estimate about where this is. Now you have to be careful because of the blue line, because I've drawn that right on the top. So we're looking at the very bottom of this blue line here, and we're going to approximate that at about 13,000. And again, make sure you look and you don't just put 13, because there weren't just 13 people in attendance. There were 13,000 people in attendance. So you're going to write the average is about 13,000. Or you can just put about 13,000 because there's not a whole lot of room to write there. Make sure you have that written before you move on. All All right, now we're going to look at some line graphs. A line graph displays data using line segments. The line graphs are a good way to display data that changes over a period of time. Now, it's not the only way to use a line graph, but it is helpful when showing time or over a period of time. A double line graph can be used to compare how two related data sets change over time. A double line graph has a key to distinguish between the two sets of data.
All right, example number 4 is reading and interpreting line graphs. It says use the graph to answer each question. At what time was the humidity the lowest? So you're going to write the word lowest there in the blank on your paper. And then we're going to look over here at the graph and determine where it is the lowest. It's pretty apparent. It's going to be right here. This is the lowest dip in the line. Just a little bit lower here than at 8 a.m., so it is going to be 4 a.m., so that's what you're going to write there in your blank. Part B says, during which 4-hour time period did the humidity increase the most? So you're looking for the most drastic increase. And you can see here that these are in 4-hour increments. So we're not looking for when it's going down or staying almost the same, but we're looking for where it is most drastically increasing. And you can see that from 12 to 4 p.m. right here, that is the most drastic increase in humidity. So the blank there you're going to write 12 to 4 p.m.
Eventually you're just looking for the steepest slope here. And I know it's not very much different between 8 to 12 and then 12 to 4, but 12 to 4 is a little bit steeper than the other one, so that's the reason that we put 12 to 4 p.m.
And I'm sorry here, I didn't emphasize you needed to put the word most in your blank there. And like Ms. Singh just said, that's the largest rate of change, or the slope is the steepest.
All right, number 5, it says, in which months did gas station A charge more than gas station B? This one's a double line graph. And if we're looking at our graph, this is talking about cost in dollars, and this is talking about the months, so that would be January, February, March, April, May, and so on. The red one is gas station A, and the blue one is gas station B. Okay. And it says, in which month did gas station A charge more, and you need to fill in with the word more on your worksheet, than gas station B. So I'm going to look through, and I'm looking for where A is higher than B, or where the red is higher than the blue, and that happens right here, where the red is higher than the blue, and that is the month of May. So we're going to write May for part A. Part B says, during which months did the stations charge the same? So we're looking for where the points are the same on our graph. And you need to fill in with the word same on your worksheet.
And the optional S there after the word months tells us that it might be more than one.
So here in January they're not the same. They're not the same in February. They're not the same in March. They are the same in April. So April's going to be one of them. They're not the same here, but they are the same here. So that would be July. And nowhere else are they the same. So we're going to put April and July for our answers for B. Make sure you have all that written before you move on. Part C says, what was the average cost for regular gasoline in November for the two stations? You need to make sure that you write the word average in the blank. So to find the average, I'm going to look at November here, and it looks like for gas station A it was $1.22. And for gas station B, it was about $1.25 because it's right in the middle of $1.24 and $1.26. To find the average of the two, I'm going to add them and divide by how many there are, and here there's 2. So I'm going to say $1.25 plus $1.22, and I get $2.47. So that's the total I want in the average. So I'm going to take that number and divide by 2. $2.47 divided by 2 is $1.24. I do not want you to write this one. We're just showing you that since it's money, it has to be 2 decimal places. You need to make sure that you have your money symbol to show that it's money, and it needs to be rounded to 2 decimal places. So that 5, turn that 3 into a 4. And down here it gives you a little thing that says money has 2 decimal places. because that way I can say that it was $1.24 or $1.24. Make sure you have that written before you move on, and there is no space for that, so you just need to write it at the bottom there. All right, a circle graph shows parts of a whole. The entire circle represents 100% of the data, and each sector represents a percentage or a percent of the total. Circle graphs are good for comparing each category of data to the whole set of data.
These are examples of circle graphs at the bottom of the screen.
Notice they make a circle. Imagine that.
All right, we're going to use the circle graph to answer the next question. It says, fill in the missing percentages. On your paper, fill in the missing percentages, and I think that it would be best for you here, instead of trying to cram it in here, go ahead and write it on the actual piece of the pie here. So go ahead and write 13% here on lemon sherbet, 12% here on pineapple juice, and if you can't already see it on your copy, and I don't think you'll be able to, write 25% here on orange juice and 50% here on ginger ale. It's obvious that ginger ale is 50% because it takes up half of the circle. Which two ingredients, fill in the blank with word two, add up to a total of 25%. Sorry, the wording there is not great. Which two ingredients add up to a total of 25%? So obviously you have your 50% here and your 25% here. So what's left of the pie or the circle graph is another 25% because that would equal 100%, which is a whole. So our lemon sherbet and our pineapple juice are going to go in the blank there as our two ingredients that add up to a total of 25%. So write lemon sherbet and pineapple juice there in the blank as best you can. We're rewarding people who write really small today. Sorry. Make sure that you get that down. Part B says the recipe makes 32, put 32 in the blank there. The recipe makes 32 cups of punch. How many cups are orange juice? So again, this whole this whole circle graph here is representing the punch recipe. If it makes 32 cups of punch, how many of those cups are orange juice? We know that 25% of the punch is orange juice. So we're going to say 25% of 32. So where it says show work, write 25% of 32. And then we're going to break this down. We're going to put 25% as a decimal, which is 0.25. We know that when we use the word of, it means that we're multiplying. So 0.25 times 32. And that's going to give us 8 cups. 8 cups. I know that if I'm using 8 cups of orange juice, that I'm using 16 cups of ginger ale because 25 is half of 50. So I can double whatever orange juice I'm using, and that's going to be how much ginger ale I'm using.
And the question didn't ask that. It's just an extra little piece of information for you.
And you don't have to write down ginger ale as 16 cups. But this does need to be written down. All right, so now we're going to ask if the recipe makes 32 cups of punch, how many cups are pineapple juice? So we're going to follow the same procedure here to determine the amount of pineapple juice. I'm going to take 12%, because that's how much of it is pineapple juice, and multiply it by 32. So 0.12 times 32 is going to give me 3.84 cups of pineapple juice. So make sure you have that down next to C where it says pineapple juice, question mark, put 3.84. You're not going to have room to write the word cups. You can put a C. All right, now we're going to ask how many cups are lemon sherbet. So if it makes 32 cups of punch, we're going to multiply 13%, because that's how much of the punch is lemon sherbet, 13%. So 0.13 times 32 gives us 4.16 cups. So again, write 4.16 on the blank there for part D of lemon sherbet, and you can put a C after it because you're not going to be able to fit the word cups. And you can see here that if I go back and add up all of my cups here, it's going to come out to be exactly 32 cups. So that's a quick way to double check our work and make sure that we have all of the parts of our punch.
A stem and leaf plot arranges data by dividing each data value into two parts. The digits other than the last digit of each value are called a stem. The last digit of a value is called a leaf, and the key tells you how to read each value. So here you can see our stem and leaf, and we have our key. It says 2-3 means 23. So this would be 9, 12, 14, 18, 18, 23, 24, 24, and so on and so forth. So we're going to look at how to make a stem and leaf plot. It says the points scored by the Sparta Warriors football team for 10 games is listed below. Make a stem and leaf plot to display the data. So you're going to go ahead there on the right hand side of your worksheet and make a stem and leaf little table right here, and we're going to fill that in. Alright, it says, and you're going to fill in some of these over there to the side. The tens digits are the stems, so you're going to write the word stems in the blank. And the ones digits are the leaves, so you're going to put the word leaves in the blank. Then it says list stems least to greatest. So go ahead and write the words least to greatest in your blank. Must have a stem for every tens place, even if there's not a data value for that stem. So my stems are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, because here we have 7 and 3. We're going to put zeros for those. I have all these to go in here except for the 2, but again, I have to write the 2 even if there's no leaves to go in it because I don't want to leave a blank there. List leaves least to greatest, so make sure you put least to greatest in that blank right there. So we're going to fill in, for the 0 we have 3 and 7, so they're going to be least to greatest, 3 and 7. For our 1s we have 17, 14, so we're going to list those least to greatest, so we're going to say 4 and 7 for 14 and 17. We don't have any 2s, but again we don't want to leave that blank, so we put the 2, we're just not going to have any leaves to go with it. Our stem for 3 we have 34 and 38. And another 34. So we're going to list those least to greatest. So we're going to say 4, 4, and 8 for 34, 34, and 38. Then we have 42, 47, and 41. So we're going to put 1, 2, and 7. Again, they need to be least to greatest. The stems need to be least to greatest, and your leaves in each thing need to be least to greatest. Also, it's important that we have a title and a key for our graph. That way, if somebody's just looking at our stem and leaf plot, they can tell what we're talking about. So if you weren't given this information, I could say, hey, this is football scores, and 3-8 means 38. So I could look at this and tell what the football scores were, even without the information up here. So make sure you write the word football scores at the top of your stem and leaf, and make sure you use the key. 3-8 means 38. And again, I could use any of these values for that. I could have used 1-4 and said that that means 14. Doesn't matter. You just need an example so that somebody knows how to read your stem and leaf plot. Please make sure you have all that down before you move on. Number 8, the number of visitors to a park per day over 2 weeks is shown by the stem and leaf plot below. So this is visitors to a park. It says how many days did 19 people visit the park? So you need to write the number 19 in the blank. So I'm looking for the number 19, and I see it right here. 1-9 is 19, and 1-9 here is 19. So there were 2 days that 19 people visited the park. So you're going to write 2 days in your blank. Part B says, how many days did the park have more than 40 visitors? That's not including 40, that's more than 40. So if I look right here, I have 42, 43, 45, 45, 52, 54, and 54. Those are all more than 40, and so I'm going to count them. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 days they had more than 40 visitors. So make sure you put 7 days in your blank. Also make sure you have the 40 written in your blank. Make sure you have all that written before you move on. Alright, so there's our objective, to be able to interpret data in line graphs, bar graphs, circle graphs, and stem and leaf plots. Here's your before you go, and it is actually written on your worksheet, so we want you to go ahead and see if you can work number 1 and number 2. So go ahead and pause the video and see what you can do with those. Alright, hopefully you've paused the video. For number 1, you should have 2.5 plus 2 divided by 2 for the average price of strawberries for week 3. And that is $2.25. So you need to make sure you have week 3, that 3 written in your blank, and $2.25 was your answer for that. Hopefully you got that correct. If not, please go back and fix it. Number 2 said, what percentage of muffins ordered were blueberry? So here, blueberry, there were 20 out of 125 total muffins, which is 0.16, which is 16%. Sorry, I clicked a little bit too fast. So you should have B circled here with this out to the right. So if you got that correct, good. If not, please go back and fix it before you move on. All right, your homework's written at the top of your paper. Please get out a clean sheet of paper and go ahead and write down your homework. All right, that is the end of your video. Thank you for watching.